Gary Kimura was Pacheco. My parents was Angeline and Alfred Pacheco from Kīlauea. My father was born in Kīlauea. My mother was born in Lihui. And he worked for the plantation. They used to ride horses, during his time.
And you had how many siblings did you have?
4, with me 5.
So you are the
Second oldest.
Second oldest.
Yeah, and then.
And then Auntie?
Yeah, I'm Marilyn Pacheco Louis. I got married in 1957 and I moved to the west side. But as a child, we did a lot of mischievous little things. My brother Wayne and I, we were the ones that were always in trouble.
And Wayne was the oldest?
He's
No.
right below me, one
Right
year
below.
below me. Sally was always the little angel. Wayne and I, we would go with a whole group of kids. And in the old days, there was a huge garden. And there was the Portuguese garden, the Japanese garden, the Filipino garden. And we would have to go after school and water that garden and pull out the green worms from the cabbage and throw it in a can. And when we were done, we would all go skinny dipping. And so when we're done, we'd put our clothes on and we were hungry. We would go into the Japanese garden and we'd pull up their peanuts. And we would take the peanuts off and plant the plant back. And then after that, we would go into the Filipino garden and they had beautiful carrots. So we would pull their carrots and break it off and plant the carrot leaves back in and wash it and we would eat it. And I mean, we did that. We went to every garden and took something from there. And so we thought we were smarter than our parents because we thought, no way they're going to know we went swimming. But as kids, you don't realize one look at your eyes and your hair, they know what you did. So we would always get the belt. always on our legs.
Oh my.
And I would go to school every week with red marks on my legs because I got the belt pretty often, Wayne and I. And but it was fun. And we grew up with a outhouse. And there was a long walkway. And my sister and I, my dad would cut a coconut in half. And we used that as a brush. He would take out the hard part of it. What do you call that?
The shell.
The shell. And we had to scrub that long walkway with that. Scrub it, the whole walkway. And it was white, all the boards, because we had to scrub it with soap and wash it. And the outhouse, because it was quite a distance. And we had to do that. And my dad was very, very strict. I mean, if boys came over and Gary, they would say to Gary, I want to see, where's your sister? And he would say, which sister you want? Wait, how many do you have? And then he wouldn't call us. He would go straight to my dad. And my dad would say, what do you want to do with my daughters? He was very strict. But, you know, we did a lot of camping and fishing with my dad. I used to go torching every week down Anini Beach, walk on the reef with the spear and the glass box and the torch and catch fish. We'd catch lobsters, squid, and we used to bring home a good load of fish. And I enjoyed that. But I'm sure they have more stories to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wayne and I we used to go fishing with my Auntie Mary. I mean, and we would walk from Kīlauea to Kahili.
Down this road
Yeah.
here, the Rock Quarry Road.
Yeah.
Oh.
Never had that side
Yeah.
until later.
Mm-hmm.
And those days, all you had was a canvas. You throw it over a branch of the tree, anchor it down, and sleep on the sand. Throw a blanket down, sleep on the sand.
Wow.
We'd go swimming in the river, we'd go swimming in the ocean, we'd catch crabs, and somebody would hold the crab down. And then the other one would break the last leg and lock the pinchers
Oh.
so that he couldn't pinch us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd put it on a fire, and somebody would get a stick and hold him on the fire until he couldn't move. And then we cooked it, and then we ate it. Yeah, we did that a lot when we were fishing. And the way we did it is we had a bamboo pole
Mm-hmm.
with a cord. And my dad would tie usually it's a bone with a little bit of meat. And one of us put that down, and the other one has a bamboo with the net. And then lift it up and slowly, come on, put that net. And the crab lets go, and she catches the crab, and we bring it in.
Yep.
And that's how we went crabbing.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, that was the days. And then my auntie had this small eye net, and we would catch opayas.
Mm.
And come home and just fry it,
Mm-hmm.
put a little soy sauce on it, and that was a meal.
Yeah.
That was a meal for us.
Yeah. Delicious.
Yeah.
And where was baby Gary in all of this?
I don't know.
Can you introduce yourself, please, sir?
Yeah, I'm Gary Pacheco. 3/4 of a century living here. Left for a little while, came back. I didn't go to Kīlauea school. I went to St. Catherine's from kindergarten through 8th grade, and then Kapal School for 4 years. I haven't got to college, but I've learned a lot on my own, and I learned a lot from my dad. And that's how I learned about working on tires, was through him, because he was a tireman for the plantation. I remember going to school in all kinds of transportation, where we call Thronis House in Moloa.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bridge there just after the fruit stand. That bridge got washed out one year
Mm-hmm.
because of the flood. So we'd have to catch the church's truck to there, walk across the little temporary bridge, and jump on the National Guard truck to go to school until they put a temporary bridge so that the cars could go over. So we used to call the truck the covered wagon,
Mm-hmm.
because the backside of the truck had like a covered wagon, and then there were benches inside, like how the plantation had the labor trucks, the benches. Well, this is a cover to protect the students. And so I rode that. Then we rode the Yadaos had the bus service. So after the church gave up their covered wagon, then we went to the bus. And when they were building the road where the hole in the mountain is, we had this driver. His name was Pio.
Mm-hmm.
He was a kind of elderly, never had too much teeth, and he used to drive the school bus. And when they were doing the road where the hole in the mountain is, you'd have to go, if they're working on the main portion of the road, you'd have to go on the shoulder. And then, we told him, hey, Pio, you better watch out because the side is soft. He says, Bamba, we're going to fall down. So in the front of the bus, they had a little bench where you come up the steps, and I used to ride there. So one day we were coming home, and he was going, ay, salamagan. And the bus went, the portion tilted over. I was right on the bench, and I was like surfing the dry land with the bench going over the bus, because he had opened the door, and I went flying in the dirt and in the pineapple field.
Oh my goodness.
And everybody says, Pio, why did... He says, I told them the bus too big for the dirt. But, it's something that sticks in your mind that, hey, this is one of the adventures that we had, going to school.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then from there, after I graduated, where Ileana, the dentist is, that used to be Northside service station. It was a Chevron station. And the Mitsui store was right next door.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked there, pumping gas. And Gary Mitsui used to come because they lived right next door.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like a grease monkey there. Then when I became of age, I drove the school bus. And my route was from the dry cave in Haena all the way to Kapaa. And at that time, the Lumahai Bridge is not what it is. It was a smaller version. And part of it looked like the Hanalei Bridge, the thing. And to go there, you'd have to really hug the mountains because of the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And going around Lumahai, they had the Robinson truck, the cattle truck. So my boss installed this air horn to warn people that we're coming around the mountain with the bus.
Mm.
And it was an experience. I drove the school bus through floods, where my concern was, hey, the kids have to go home. So what would happen is the county truck would go in front, and the bus was a diesel. So it was like a boat going in the water, pop, 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 with the exhaust coming out, just to bring the kids home, instead of them being stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's still flooding, But then I left the service station and bus riding. I went to work for Hanalei Plantation Hotel.
Mm.
I started off cleaning windows because there were cottages that overhung over the side. So we had to literally take off the sliding doors to clean it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started off there. Then I went to be a bellman, maintenance, and then eventually I took over the stock room. Then when I left the hotel, I was working for the front desk. And, we met a lot of celebrities. And one thing I want to brag about is Elizabeth Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I touched her golden ring. That Malanka diamond that she had?
Yeah.
Barry Epp was the manager, and he says, you cannot go home until she comes. I says, Barry, I work plantation 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And she drives in like about 12:15. And with her brother's Volkswagen, chut, the windshield wiper, and the headlight, only one working, one still shining up in the moon. So I said, hey, she's coming. So she comes, and then she puts her hand out. So I grab her hand to help her out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going like, oh, that's the diamond. So then she comes in, she goes to the front desk, and she says, do you have a safe? We say, yeah. So they showed her, it's a big safe that they had.
Mm-hmm.
So she stops, she opens her purse, she takes out this black box. I go, what is this? So she opens it up, and it has the fake diamond in there.
Oh.
So she had one fake diamond ring and the real one. So she took the real one off, she put it in, closed. And she said, I want to see you lock the safe.
Oh wow.
The next day when I went to work at the plantation, I says, guess what? I had touched the Liz Taylor's diamond ring. She says, she's at the hotel. But you know, we've met a lot of celebrities down at the hotel, and I truly miss, you know, working there. And then I worked for the plantation from 7 in the morning till 3:30, and the hotel from 4 to 11.
Wow.
And I had just half an hour to go home, take a shower, and go to Hanalei through the old road down Kīlauea, the old road around, and I made it there at 4 o'clock. I didn't need to worry about dinner because I knew the chef, and every so often a steak would fall down on the ground.
Oh. Special
So,
for you.
yeah, he'd say, Gary, one steak had fall down. You mind eating them? I said, nope. So I'd have, it didn't fall on the ground, but I had that. But, you know, I stayed there till 1970, and then I went to work for the phone company. So I worked for the phone company for 35 years.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of people went through hardships, hurricanes, tidal waves, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, I haven't gone to college, but in our Lions Club, I'm promoting the people to go to school, because like I tell them, people can take your slipper, they can take your pencils and everything else, but they cannot take your knowledge. So study hard, be like one tree that is grown on good soil that doesn't tip over.
Mm-hmm.
That way there you'll get ahead.
So Auntie, you said your dad worked for a plantation, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah? And so what did he do?
Well, in the beginning, they used to be cowboys.
Oh.
Then, you know, as plantation got more secured, he drive the sugar truck, taking them all the way to Nawili. In a big truck, and containers are in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Dump them down the Nawili and come back and go back again.
Oh. And did your grandparents work, or were your parents the first ones in Kīlauea? Or
No.
did your grandparents
My
work?
my grandparents was there. My grandma, my grandpa,
They,
they was there. But I knew only my grandma. My grandpa died, you know, when I was real small. So
Did they work plantation too, or?
yeah, they all worked plantation. In fact, my father's brothers all worked plantation.
we worked in a pineapple cannery.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My dad used to start work at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
He'd make 3 trips to Lihui, and the truck was not with power steering and had a double shifting. And he'd have to go down in Moloa, towing the 2 trailers. He knew how many dotted lines there were between Kīlauea and Lihui, how many utility poles there were, and he knew who was late for work or never go work, because, you know, he was driving slow, and he was a very courteous driver.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime he saw a couple cars in the back, he would go on the side and signal the people to pass him.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, he was religiously 9 o'clock he would be back here, 1 o'clock he'd be back, he'd go home, have half an hour lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back at 5:30.
Wow.
So that was 5 days a week that he did that.
My goodness.
And he was, a lot of people knew him, and you know, especially the kids, when they'd see him pass, they'd go and he'd blow the air horn for them. And if you need something, you know, picked up in Lihui or whatever, go where the bulk sugar is. When he goes and unloads the raw sugar,
Mm-hmm.
he'll be there. He can bring it back for you.
Oh.
So he was like a carrier pigeon also.
Mm-hmm. And what did your guys' mom do?
My mom, when the hotel opened,
Mm-hmm.
she worked at the hotel as a chambermaid.
Which hotel?
Hanalei Plantation.
Yeah, I used to take her at night when it was her turn. Turn the cup and say, you know, you put a venda on. I used to take her that kind of time.
When you get to before that, she was working in a cannery.
Oh, she worked cannery too.
Yeah.
She worked Hawaiian food packers.
That's the up where the athletic club is in Kapahi.
Mm-hmm.
There was a cannery up there.
Far then she had to
And
go.
you know where Pulakai is?
Mm-hmm.
We had one cannery over there.
My mom worked during the day, and she and I worked at night.
Rotate
And
at
she
night.
took care of Gary.
Hey, rotate.
Yeah.
1 week day, 1 week night.
Wow.
So
And
it was
you
the second
Auntie,
mother.
you took care of you as Mama Hen.
Yes, I spoiled him when he was a baby.
That's a lie.
And how many years difference is there between the two of you?
But 12.
I'm 86. I'm gonna be 87.
Wow.
I'm 3/4 of a century.
You know, when we were growing up,
Mm-hmm.
I guess a lot of people don't know this, but the sugar plantation, they had the mules
Mm-hmm.
with the little trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and they would come and dump horse manure at your yard,
Oh.
and we had to take that and shovel it and put it all in the plants for manure.
Oh, and this is your own personal garden at your house.
All of the flowers and everything.
Yeah.
But they used to
That
pick
we
up
did
rubbish with that. Too. The Filipino
And they
used to
would come and pick up all the trash. That all we did was pile everything up,
And they come and,
and
they
they'll
pick 'em
come and do it.
up. Wow, terrific.
And then the store would come and take orders from all the plantation,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would come and deliver. And a lot of they would just charge everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end of the month, the people would pay their bills. And if they didn't have enough money, Kong Long store would say, "Okay, next month you pay me what you can." Yeah, they're very lenient about that.
Oh, that's good.
You know where the entrance to Seacliff is?
Yes.
Right across, there was a dairy there where the plantation had cows, and they used to distribute milk.
Okay.
And that's where they had the donkeys and stuff. And as you're going out of Kīlauea on the road, and when you go up that small hill on the right, there was what they call stable camp also. Most of the Filipinos lived there. And that's where Gary Smith was initiated into chicken fighting.
Oh.
He and his
my.
brother, they were the ringleaders because the father was the boss. So, they could get away with murder. And whenever we wanted to take girls out, hey, we gotta go chicken fight this weekend so that we can take the girls out next week.
Right.
So we could make money at the chicken fight, and then we could take the girls out.
Wow.
That's why I have the decal on my car.
Chicken fighting is a cultural thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Judge Gerald Matsunaga, the hanging judge,
Mm-hmm.
every time he sees that, he shakes his head. I put Filipinos in jail because of that. I said, yeah, but that's also how we made money to take out the girls.
Oh my goodness. So what? Besides the chicken fighting, and digging up other people's vegetables and replanting them, what else did you guys do growing up? Like, what were your pastimes? That
Swimming
swimming. Oh yes, skinny dipping.
every weekend.
Yes.
We would go to Hanalei, and the church had a house there,
Oh okay.
so we could change and shower. And I mean, one day we were pretty naughty because my sister and her friends were going to walk to Hanalei Pier, and she kept telling me, "Go home, don't follow me." And I said, "No, I want to go." And I was in the back of them and just going. So all of the kids from Kīlauea, a big gang of us, we walked from Kīlauea to Hanalei Pier because we wanted to go swimming there. And we went swimming. And you walk into the camp, and as we entered the camp and we passed the first house, that child went home, and the parents were waiting with the belt. And so we would stop and watch, and they said, "You go on home because your parents are waiting for you." And each one of us that got home, we had the belt because our parents were going crazy. They didn't know where we were.
Oh boy.
Nobody could find it. They were asking each other, is your child at home? And no, mine is not. And I mean, that was it. I mean, it was so bad. There was a volleyball tournament that night that we were supposed to play, and they canceled.
No, ask me.
You were involved.
Did you not take any part in that?
We played volleyball and baseball on when I was single. We used to play. In fact, when my husband used to go to the movies, because he and I are 12 years apart, we used to be playing baseball
Okay.
because I had a space before the old theater. So we used to play, and then we used to play volleyball and basketball.
Wow.
So, you know, after when you stay home and you know, like us, we had to boil clothes, my father's clothes.
Boil.
We
Yeah.
didn't have washing
There was,
machines.
he had
You
a
got
washing
puro.
machine, but
Oh,
we had to
yes.
boil his
Yes.
clothes because it was oily, you know, because so we had to go cut wood, you know, where Kukui Grove is.
Yes.
We went
Kūlau.
Kūlauea side.
Not Lihui Kukui Road.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
Kūlauea.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know where the
Yeah.
Kūlau Road goes off of Kuhio Highway?
Yes.
Where Zuckerberg is making his...
Yes.
Right, that's the old road. That's the road that my dad used to drive going down in there and come up. And then had EVGBs and everything.
Yeah. We used to use those big lumber saws, 2 people.
Yeah.
We had to cut wood with that.
Wow.
And we had to use the sledgehammer with the nail and split the logs. We did all of that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I used to tell my dad all the time, the cows were far away in a pasture, and I said to him, we can't cut wood today because the cows are there. And he said, those cows are not going to bother you. I said, nope, they're going to come. We need to go home. He said, get going and cut that wood. And every Saturday, religiously, we had to do that.
Oh my goodness.
Every Saturday, because those days you didn't have a heater. We had Japanese furo. And so we had to have wood for that. And my dad had a bench there, and we had a big, the Portuguese called the algodão,
A big bucket like
the galvanized
The
pans.
tarai.
Like
And-
one pakini.
Pakini and
Yeah.
My dad would nail a can with a handle, and we would take the water and put it in there. And then what we would do is we would wet ourselves, wash ourselves, and then we rinse again. Even if we had to wash our hair, that's how we did it.
Oh.
We didn't have a shower or anything in the early days. We just had a room made out of galvanized iron, you know, roofing iron. That was the walls. And that's where we took our baths like that.
with the spiders and the cockroaches.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was outside of, not connected to the house.
Right.
It was that room and then the outhouse at the end. Yeah. But you know, everybody in the sugar plantation were poor. But you don't miss what you don't have. And we were real happy. We grew up happy. And I mean, all the different cultures, we were always all together. You know, we would even go, there was a big gulch, and we would walk down there and jump all over the rocks and everything, and then come back. And one day, some of us climbed trees, the mountain apple trees. Well, Irene Quinones, she climbed and the branch broke.
Oh.
And she fell and she broke her arm. Now, because she fell and broke her arm, we were in big trouble for
Yeah.
that. We weren't supposed to be there.
So in addition to your siblings, each other, of course, what families did you folks kind of grow up with?
Raposos, Quinones, Salvador, who else?
Belmontes.
Del Monte. Yeah, the Quinones girls and the Raposa girls
And the Alejo girls.
were a little older than we were.
Mm.
The Alejos, the Freites,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all of us would get together. We would go down to Allen River, and not to swim, but there was a rope hanging from one of the trees, and we would swing on that rope out over the river and swing back. Well, my sister, she thought she was smart. She swung out on the rope and she let go.
Oh.
And she fell in the river.
Oh.
And Olivia Raposo was there, and she was a good swimmer. She dived in the river and saved her.
You didn't swim?
No, that's it.
You know, I said to her, "Why did you let go of the rope?" "I don't know."
She was a good friend of mine. I used to go
Yeah,
visit
but
her
I
all
mean-
the time.
Mm.
That was, of course, you know, when we got home, we got the belt.
Because
Yeah.
you came home all wet.
Yeah,
Oh my
she was
goodness.
dripping wet.
Another thing that I remember is, you know, a lot of people, even my wife, till today, she doesn't like the idea. The mill, you know, when they'd wash the cane, the dirty water would end up in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But like I tell her, and I tell her over, I says, when the mill was functioning, every summer we had at least a dozen hukilaus with a coolie in Kīlauea Bay,
Mm-hmm.
because the dirty water would attract the
Fish.
coolie.
Yeah.
So what would happen is the akanas would surround, and then they'd send a truck up to Kilauea at about 3:45, because everybody got through at 3:30, and say, "Hukilau, come down."
Mm-hmm.
And whether you were there from the beginning or you just reached when they were giving away fish, if the portion was 3 fish, you would get 3 fish.
Mm-hmm.
And even the babies would get 1 fish.
Oh wow.
So everybody got fish when they had that. And then Kaupea,
Mm-hmm.
Secret Beach, with a dirty water and the clear water met.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they had moi, and the mois would be about so big
Oh.
and fat, because they'd be in the dirty water and the guys would be fishing right at the edge of the thing. And sometimes they'd have to make 2 or 3 trips up the hill because they had so much fish.
Wow.
And the Filipinos shared with the Japanese, because the Japanese had a garden back here.
Mm-hmm.
They grow 10 head cabbage. They don't eat 10 head cabbage. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the Filipinos, 1 fish is 1 week of lunch and dinner. They mix them with paria, karamungay, you know, all that other stuff. So it was a sharing community. You shared what you have. You give them fish, they give you vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
But now, how often you have hukilaus? Don't hold up your hand, because you can put up 1 finger. There's no hukilaus.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the dirty water did attract
Mm-hmm.
the akulis to come into Kīlauea Bay.
Right.
And it's sad that, you know, the plantation closed, and with the plantation closing, we lost those fringe benefits,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like picking up lilikoi along the edge of the cane field, mountain apple, you know, all of those things that grew wild.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got to plan them yourself to get.
Right. Right.
You know, also is people in Hawaii eat a lot of rice
Mm-hmm.
because everybody was so poor. The rice was the filler.
Right.
So that the parents didn't have to cook a lot of
Protein.
food.
Mhm.
And then you put your rice and you put everything on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody would be full. So we ate a lot of soups,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fish, because everybody went fishing. So we lived off the land basically in those days. Everybody had vegetable gardens, fishing, hunting,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the way we survived,
Right.
by doing that. Where today, people buy things ready-made. They don't know how to survive,
Mm-hmm.
and where the old folks, they can survive,
Mm-hmm.
In those days we had ice boxes,
Mm-hmm.
not refrigerators. They would come around with big chunks of ice, and my mom would put towels down at the bottom, and they put this big chunk of ice in there, and that's how you kept things cold.
Wow.
And then the old Chinese men would come into the camps with these cans of tofu,
Mm-hmm.
and we would buy 5 cents one or 10 cents one. We would go out with a big bowl, and we all bought tofu, and we ate a lot of tofu
Yeah.
that way. Yeah.
Oh. Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that tofu would have been such a big part of your folks' diet.
Yeah, he would drive into the plantation camps,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody would come out from the houses with their bowls
Yeah.
and buy it.
He had it in
Those little
Cracker
square
can.
cans.
Oh.
before it used to come in the I don't know, 5 gallon or whatever cracker can.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody bought cracker by the can.
Yeah.
And then you recycle the thing like he did. That he put all the tofu in there to keep it cold, and then so he went. And if you didn't catch him at the beginning, don't wait till the end because you ain't gonna get him. It would have been sold out because it was a popular dish.
Did you guys go to those social box dances?
Oh, yes. We love to go.
Not you, Auntie.
No,
No.
Oh, yeah.
no.
They would have the box lunches and the taxi dancers.
Yes.
They would come and dance with the old mans, and they would auction the box out,
my.
and that's who they would dance with that woman. And we all sneaked in to watch them.
Not only taxi there, this was the local girls too that went.
Wow.
See, the thing is, what it is the girls would make the box lunch,
Okay.
That's
and
right.
then they'd go in a gym,
Okay.
and they have the Filipino orchestra,
Okay.
and they bid for the boxes. Like you made on box, so you says, I have my box lunch, and they looked at you, they say, oh, I like dance with her. So they outbid each other. But the girls didn't like that much because they made money in the box lunch. But when it was time, after they bought the box, then they had to dance with the guy. And the Filipino song would last like 10 minutes. And the Filipino men were so horny, they'd squeeze the girls. They could hardly breathe because they wanted to feel her body. So after they got through, with the dance, they went, I don't know if I want to do this again. I could hardly breathe. But, that's how. They were all single men from the Philippines, and they don't care about, they would give their whole paycheck to dance with these girls.
Oh my goodness.
And, and like I say, I can still see, there was this one guy that played the Mandarin or some. What is that they played, Gary?
Mandolin.
Mandolin.
Yeah.
And he was left-handed. And Mr. Baclayon was one of the band members, and the thing would go on, and the girls would go, please stop. But, that's how the girls made money.
In the old days, the missionaries first brought Chinese here to Hawaii, but they didn't want to marry and have families. And so that's how they decided to go to Portugal, because the Portuguese all had big families.
Right.
So our family migrated in the early 1900s, and Pacheco side came from Madeira, and the Mota side came from the Ozones, and they came on a ship, and there was a epidemic on the ship of measles, really bad, and so when they docked on Oahu, they could not go out. They quarantined, and there was a lot of fighting, and some of them died fighting. They wanted to get on shore. And then what they did is they would take the families and they would say, okay, this family goes to the Big Island, this family stays in Oahu, this family goes to Kauai, and that's how they decided where each family would go.
Right.
And it took them over a month traveling on a freighter from Portugal to here.
And this was your grandparents then that made that.
My grandparents
Oh, and then they ended up being one of the ones to come
to come.
to Kīlauea.
Yeah. And my mother's oldest sister, all of them could speak Portuguese, but her sister could write Portuguese and read Portuguese. So a lot of the Portuguese women would go to her house for her to read their letters, and they would tell her what they wanted to say, and she would write it. And that's how they communicated with the family. in Portugal.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah. And my mother's family, my mother and her younger sister were the only ones that was born here.
Oh.
The others were all
Born in Portugal.
born in Portugal. Yeah, and I mean, 14 in their family. Sally?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was 14 in my mother's
I
family.
never count.
2 of them died on the voyage.
Wow. Only 2 though.
Yeah, only 2.
That's terrific.
One died from, he got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And a little girl, the merchant marines, sexually abused her and choked her to death. Yeah, my mom she never talked about it until she was on her deathbed. And she told me about it.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was a long voyage for them. And they settled. And the Pachecos and the Motas, that's my mother's maiden name,
Mm-hmm.
they were told to settle on Kauai.